It's MarfoFan45 here, and today we'll be reviewing Dune, released in 2021, directed by Denis Villeneuve, and starring Oscar Isaac, Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, and Stellan Skarsgård. And the film follows Paul Atreides as he and House Atreides go to Arrakis to mine spice, and there's something else going on, and I'll leave it at that. So yeah, Dune was one of, if not my most anticipated movie of the year. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece, but it's close. I have some issues I just want to get out of the way right as we start. So the first act is like all world building, but it's a bit too slow. Like, I think it could have sped up a little bit in terms of the stuff it was trying to do. Like, I've read the books, I already know all this. But I feel like Denis Villeneuve could have moved the film a little faster than he did at the start. Because the film starts off with just exposition dump after exposition dump after exposition dump after exposition dump. And here's the thing. I didn't want to watch this movie for the action. I was expecting, like, a slower, more well-paced epic with some action. But this film, it doesn't quite do it right. Like, Lord of the Rings is probably the best example. It perfectly crafts this world within the opening 5 minutes. And it tells you everything you need to know in that opening 5 minutes. And you immediately know who the characters are, what they're trying to do. Well, no, it establishes, like, the whole backstory pretty fast. But this film takes a little longer. My main issue is, like, the opening scene is a perfect example. Oh, and it also stars Zendaya, I forgot to add that. It just, like, flashes by all this quick action, then all of a sudden flips to this attempt to become a more moody sci-fi flick, but it doesn't quite reach that, if that makes sense. These thoughts are just going to be rambling, because I need to rewatch it. And then my other issue was, I cannot believe I'm going to say this was an issue, Hans Zimmer. He could have toned it down here. There are some scenes where this epic score is playing, and it's big and it's bombastic, but nothing epic is happening. Nothing important is happening. Like, I think the best example is the shot of, like, the planet they're on at the start for the house, and everything is, like, huge in scale, and the epic music is playing, but it's played to such a degree that, like, it got repetitive within, like, 5 minutes, and I did not want to hear it again, and I heard it again for the next 2 hours and 28 minutes. But those are just the negatives. I really wish Hans Zimmer toned it down a bit, because Dune is, as the movie showed, much more psychedelic than people think it is. It's more focused on, like, Paul as a character than, like, intense action sequences, which is why I love it. And then the action sequences just came off as a bit too much. Like, this gets into my issue with the first act. So the first act establishes, like, a moody atmosphere, and it's pretty good. But then, out of nowhere in the second act, Villeneuve just throws all of the action at you. Like, all of it. At once. And yeah, he could have toned it down. Everyone here really could have toned it down, is what I'm trying to say. And then the visual style I also wasn't the biggest fan of, but that's mainly because I despise Blade Runner 2049, but I need to rewatch it. But my main issue with that movie was the original Blade Runner is the best example. So in that movie, you see Deckard walking through these, like, naturalistic, beautiful cities. But here, it's like, it feels like a set. It doesn't feel like like Lord of the Rings, again, another great example. Star Wars, even. That's a good comparison, even though Dune did inspire Star Wars. But, like, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, I mean, all the big sci-fi epics. 2001, like, all of those movies feel like there is no set. It all feels real, if that makes sense. Although I think comparing 2001: A Space Odyssey to this is a bit unfair. So I'm just going to switch it up for a second to another movie that came out recently that I could compare it to. So Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, which if you follow me on Letterboxd, you know I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. But it has the same issue as Dune. It feels like a set. It doesn't feel real and immersive like, again, like Blade Runner. That's the example I always go back to, Blade Runner. Like, that was another issue with, like, The Last Jedi too, where it felt more like a set than the sci-fi epic thing it should. T2, well, I'm just bringing up random sci-fi movies now. T2 is another good example. It's naturalistic, it shows everything, but it doesn't feel like a set. But then, having the film look like a set can work. Like, Tron Legacy is a great example. That movie looks fake, but that's the point. Because it's meant to be superficial. Now, if you think about the movie that way, and everything the Atreides have is just superficial, then it would make sense. But the world just doesn't come off as natural as it should. Like, Arrival, it comes off more natural than, like, this does. Like, Arrival, it feels real and immersive, but you don't go to every movie for reality. My point is, like, this movie does not immerse you enough in, like, Arrakis, in the deserts, and the planets. It all just feels like a set. Like, it doesn't even feel like Arrakis in the books, but I'm not going to compare it to the books, because I don't want this review to come off unfair. So, like, Arrakis in the books, I just said I wasn't going to compare it, sorry. Okay, never mind. But basically, the deserts feel like they just filmed in a desert. Oh, A New Hope, Tatooine, good example. That feels like a hot planet. Like, you can feel everything in it. Like, you feel the atmosphere. Here I didn't get that. Don't get me wrong, it's visually appealing and stunning to look at. And there are certain points where it starts to, like, get better, and it starts to feel more like a film that's trying to get you into it. But it takes a long time to get there, and by the time you get there, it's already over. Okay, so that was all my negatives, and that took 8 minutes to say, but yeah, those were my negatives with Dune. Let's now get into the positives. All the performances are great. Oscar Isaac, Timothée Chalamet, Jason Momoa, Zendaya, Stellan Skarsgård, Rebecca Ferguson. Everyone gives a great performance. Don't think that needs to be said, because, I mean, just look at the cast. They're all great. Jason Momoa fits in really well. And yeah, cast just has a good time, although... Okay, another issue. So, a Terrence Malick film, like a film like Song to Song, it makes sense that there's whispering because it's trying to be super philosophical. But here, they just whisper like randomly, and you can barely audibly hear them. That's a nitpick though, so I'm gonna just skip over that. But yeah, on to the other positives. The visuals are pretty good. Villeneuve does pretty good on the visual front. It looks great. The psychedelic sequences involving the spice especially look amazing. The shots with the worm look amazing. And yeah, visually it's appealing. Zimmer's score, again, it's a double-edged sword. It works at some points and fails at others, but it mostly works somewhat, kind of. It's fine. I think that sums up my opinion on most of this movie. It's pretty good. Go out and see it before it leaves theaters. I was really hoping to love this a lot, but I didn't end up fully clicking with it, you know. I wish I could have. I still give it like a 9 out of 10. Like, it's a really good movie. It's got immersive atmosphere and it brought the books I love to life. But, like, it didn't tickle my fancy in terms of, like, filmmaking. Because filmmaking-wise, didn't really do it for me. Like, I think a great example of what I like filmmaking-wise is, like, Cry Macho this year. Visually, that movie is stunning. I love the way that movie looks. But here, again, it just breaks the immersion for me when I think of things as sets and not, like, the film world. Like, L.A. Confidential, another good example. You get sucked into, like, this noirish world. And, yeah. I feel like I just kind of went on a mini rant about all my problems with the movie, so. But, yeah, okay. This movie is pretty good. I'm happy with what Villeneuve did with it, but I think he could have done better. And that's always what's gonna happen, though. Like, when you have your expectations set up for a movie this high, then the expectations can ruin the movie for you. And I already have the book bias, too, so I already went into it, like, wanting to like it, but I didn't, like, click with it fully. Like, Dune was pretty good. I was debating on whether or not to do this in, like, a separate video discussing all the movies I watched while I was off YouTube, or just, like, in general, do a review for it. And I'm kind of glad I did a review for it, because I have a lot to say on this movie. And, oh yeah, and Zendaya gives the best performance in this movie, and she's barely even in it till the second half, but that's how the book goes, so I'm okay with it. But, yeah, Dune 2021, pretty good. I just hope films that come out after it this year are much better. So, yeah. Expect a second and maybe third review for this, because I will be rewatching it, and I will be doing my thoughts on a rewatch. And I want to go deeper into the movie. I don't just want to talk about, like, filmmaking and perspective-wise. I want to talk about the symbolism that's in here, because there's lots of symbolism. The action scenes are great. I forgot to mention the action scenes. The action scenes are cool. And, yeah. Summed up, expect more videos on Dune in the future, because this is a movie I want to discuss. Like, I don't want to leave it at this one video, because there's so much for me to talk about in this movie. Like, the psychedelic aspect alone, with the spice, I could talk about in general, like, for a while, because the movie's, like, it's focused on, like, fate and having everything, like, set out for you already, and then the fear of that oncoming fate, which is also the same thing as the book, but it's just, like, it's dread of what you might become. But that's a discussion for another day. I want to do a few more videos on Dune. I will be rewatching it before I do those videos, so yeah. I'm just shocked that Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was 4 hours, felt shorter than this movie, because this movie is a bit overlong, too. However, go see it. I would highly, highly recommend you go see this movie. It's a theatrical experience. It is some of the most fun I've had in a theater in a while. Just seeing the spaceships of Dune move across the world, seeing the spice harvesting, seeing the Fremen come to life was like a dream come true. But, again, it could have been better. Denis Villeneuve is a good filmmaker. Do not get me wrong. Denis Villeneuve is a good filmmaker. He's had one miss, in my opinion, one really bad miss. But other than that, he's all good. Nothing has topped Sicario for me, though. I don't think anything he makes ever will. But, yeah, Dune. It's really good. Go see it. I'm going to lower my grade. 8 out of 10. But still go see it. Because I would encourage people to see this movie. Because it's a more artistic take on the blockbuster, which we haven't gotten in a little bit. But, like, No Time to Die also did an artistic blockbuster, but it also did it in a different way in view, since it was a James Bond movie. But yeah, that was my massive, long rambling on Dune. I apologize for making this review so long and for ranting on certain aspects so long. But yeah, Dune, 8 out of 10. Go see it. It's solid. I'll be rewatching it. I'll be coming back to it with another review later. And yeah, stay safe and have a good day.